What if we yielded to God instead? What if we said, God, your purpose, your plan, you are sovereign? And one of the things that can help us do this, one of the things that can help us surrender to God's control is by remembering and looking at the way that God always wins through circumstances and events that almost always look like losing. We're moving into the Advent and Christmas season. It's always good to ask and to keep that question in the back of our minds. Does the Christmas story from a distance, does it look like winning? It doesn't, really. You would never write a victory story with someone coming down and being born in a manger in a dirty place, outskirts of a major town, really nowhere in particular. You'd never write a victory story that has the hero, as it were, growing up and ultimately losing his friends and closest people who all abandoned him, who's then beaten, stripped, humiliated, publicly shamed, put up on the cross, and dies. That doesn't look like winning. And yet, was God sovereign in all of that? Was God in control? Well, absolutely. That was God's plan all along. God's plan proves that He is sovereign even in the most unthinkable situations. God is a God who wins by losing. He triumphs through defeat. He accomplishes His plan always, every time, no exceptions. And the cross is proof of that. What should our response be? I think one of the ways, and close with this, is looking at, there are two characters that we're meant to contrast. It's not David and Saul. David is the one who represents what God is doing. David is the one who represents God's kingdom as it's unfolding in its surprising ways. We're meant to contrast Saul and Jonathan, father and son. Because here are two separate responses to what God is doing. We've already looked at Saul. Saul sees what God is doing and he fights tooth and nail to regain control. Saul wants to be king, no matter what. He wants to be king even over God. Look at what Jonathan does. It's in the first 5 or 7 verses there. Or maybe 4 verses, I guess. We didn't touch on this yet, all that much anyways. Jonathan recognizes what God is doing. He recognizes that David is the anointed one of God. David is God's chosen one. And Jonathan has everything to lose in that. He's not going to be king now. He's not going to have the kingdom and the power and the wealth that should have gone to him. He's the crown prince. He's first in line for the throne, and Jonathan knows that's not going to be his anymore. Does he get bitter? Does he get resentful? Does he get angry? No. He makes this covenant with David. He comes to David and says, I will be loyal to you. And then he takes off his tunic and he takes off his robe and he gives that to David. Now, understand what that is. That's not Jonathan just saying, hey, if you like my shirt, you can wear it too. No. Jonathan is saying, these are my princely robes. These robes represent my position. And I'm giving that to you. I acknowledge what God is doing in your life, David. And I yield to that. I surrender to that. For Jonathan, it must have seemed so strange. Jonathan had every reason in the world to be jealous of David, didn't he? Jonathan surrenders to what God is doing. That's true for us too. Following Jesus means that we will surrender to God's plan and surrender to His sovereign working out of that plan, even when it comes at great cost to us. And we can do that in full confidence because God has made a covenant